Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Holy Humanist. Thank you so much for those of you who have your notifications turned on. Today, I'm speaking with an individual called Ahmad Wais Rahimi, a man who survived 40 days of imprisonment by the Taliban, not for any crime, but solely for his beliefs. Rahimi was arrested for expressing secular views, held in brutal conditions, and later faced the heartbreaking loss of his father, who was also targeted. His story is one of resistance, survival, and conviction, and a reminder of what it means to hold on to your identity in the face of erasure. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Rahimi to join us as part of this conversation. Rahimi, thank you for being here and for trusting us with your truth today. Welcome to Holy Humanist.
Hello, Nuriyah. Thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure is all ours. And could you please introduce yourself to the viewers and then, yeah, I guess we'll take it from there.
First of all, my name is Ahmad Wais Rahimi. I'm founder of Secular Society of Afghanistan and co-founder of Institution of Civil Society and Human Rights in Afghanistan and human rights defender. I was in Afghanistan. And already my activities is on Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, and Pakistan. My members in these four countries.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I guess we'll just do a deep dive into your actual story now. So, could you please take us back to the moment of your arrest? What were you doing and how did it unfold for you?
On July 12th, 2022, my life changed forever. That evening, I was simply returning home when Taliban forces launched a terrifying raid on my house. Over 20 armed men, any legal document and any legal warrant, but they violently arrested me in front of my neighbors and family members as they dragged me out and they hurled countless insults and disregarding me. And also they treating me as like an animal. If I had a no value as a human being, and the days before of my arrestment, I had received multiple treating letters. They treated me to stop your activity, and they sent it me later that you should come to our station and tell about your activities. I didn't go there because before 2022 when they come to Afghanistan and 2021 also they because of my interview to media they arrested me for 48 hours because of my father. They targeted my father, and after that, after the receiving of many of treating letter from the Taliban because of my secular organization and human rights activism, especially my public appearance and online statement. Once I was taken, my family had no idea where I was completely cut off from the world. And what followed was 40 days of barratorial of imprisonment and torture and jail just because of I fight for injustice, just because of I was a secular and I was an organization that I founded because of secularism and because of freedom and justice for Afghanistan.
Oh my goodness, that sounds absolutely harrowing indeed. And I guess that moment says a lot, not just about what happened to you, but about the system that you were caught in. And clearly, the way that they arrested you as well is very much in line with the way that we do think they operate when it comes to dissidents. So thanks very much for sharing that. Can you tell us, Rahimi, what exactly you mentioned secularism and the organization that you founded and the fact that you stand up for women's rights and things like that. And we'll get into that as well further. But can you tell us what exactly you were accused of and what did they think in terms of your ideology clashing with the Taliban's ideology?
I was accused of promoting ideas that contradicted Taliban ideology, values they label it Western or anti-Islamic simply because I advocated for human rights, gender equality. They didn't fully know the depth of my beliefs, and had they known by their own fatwas, one of the danger thing is the fatwa of the mullah and sheikh. When they know about my beliefs, I would have been sentenced to death and they will kill me. But they were aware of my open opposition to religious and my strong criticism of extremist circles, and which I had expressed in media and public forums. That alone made me a target. As a result, they constantly punished me for my views. Radical guards and extremists were regularly sent to torment me. Some went as a form, as a urinating on my face during detention of humiliate and break me. Those moments were very emotionally for me. And because of that, that time I know that Taliban and extremism ideology and Islamic ideology of mullahs and sheikh, it's unhuman, and it's for 1400 years ago. It's not for now. And because of that, they tortured me. They urinated my face and they punched me a lot. And this not human being, and they have not an human being. They are like an danger animal. That lion, like a lion that they are hungry for 7 and 6 days. And they are behaving for the Taliban behave for me as that kind of things.
Wow, the things that you've described are so inhumane, as you said, and literally like animalistic, depraved behavior. That kind of environment, when you've just got to prison, can alone break a person before the interrogations even begin, I presume. So just quite quick, did you know that you would potentially be arrested, or did they come randomly one day and catch you off guard?
Nuriyah, I didn't give your question. Your voice is cutting because of connection.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, obviously, that kind of environment can break a person even before the interrogation begins, but did you have any idea that you could be arrested, or did they just catch you off guard one day?
Unfortunately, I know that because my activity was fighting against ideology of Taliban, an ideology of Sheikh, Mullah, and these kind of people. Because before the Taliban came to Afghanistan, my activity is very fast. I was very fast in activity because of injustice of Afghanistan. And we have a poor culture in Afghanistan. We have a poverty in our culture. And I fighting a lot against these kind of ideology and this kind of extremism and radicalism. At that moment, or and at that time, I received a lot of threat and a lot of treatment from tourist group, from extremism group. I received two fatwa from two mullahs for killing me, and they says Ahmad Wais Rahimi is wajib al-qatl, and if you kill that, you will go direct to Jannah because they stand against Sheikh and mullahs and hadith and etc. I know that, but unfortunately, when Taliban came to Afghanistan in 2021, and they gave our government activities changed 360 degree 360 degrees, sorry. My activities changed. I started protesting and road in a street. I start protesting with my team against Taliban, against injustice of Taliban's, against they ban it to school for girls, they ban it jobs for girls, and they do a lot of injustice against men and women who need freedom. Because of this, I know that one day I will be arrested, but because of freedom, because of justice, I fight. I every day fight, and every day my mental is going power hack. My mental is telling me my to fight with this ideology. If you fight, you will be win. But unfortunately, I don't know that one day, yeah, or and these soon days, I don't know that these soon they will harass me. I know that maybe they arrest me 2 year later, 4 year later, or maybe they will kill me 2 year later or 4 year later. But I don't know that they will arrest me in this soon day because the media and because of famousity that I have. I was very famous in media and I was very viral on Facebook, Twitter, social media, TikTok, these kind of social media. I was very viral, and every day my interview and my protest goes viral to the social media. I didn't know that they arrest me these soon days, but unfortunately they arrested me, and the world, the organization that defend from human rights defenders, and they defend from secularism, and they defend from free thinkers members, all of that is sleep and blind and situation that I have been arrested.
Wow, so of course, as you're saying, you knew it was only a matter of time, but you were completely unaware of the exact moment that you would be arrested. And I think we will touch on that later on in this interview, that the fact that these quote unquote human rights organizations that are essentially formed to protect people like you in your current precarious situation are basically silent when it comes to helping people like yourselves, or when you're detained or arrested by the Taliban to actually come to your rescue. So I know obviously you did mention, Rahimi, the kind of absolutely inhumane and degrading treatment that you faced when you were in prison, horrible encounters of urination and things like that by the guards themselves, and sheer humiliation tactics. But can you describe a little bit about what the physical conditions of the actual jail or prison were like? The cell that you were maybe kept in, the food, were you given decent food to eat? And obviously, we got a glimpse into the treatment by the kind of guards and police there. But yeah, what was the genuine day-to-day kind of prison environment like for you?
The person condition was very bad and inhuman. Unfortunately, in Taliban prison, they don't have any police. I don't know, and English is what says to mullah, unfortunately, but I
Yeah,
say,
it's
and
like the
my,
Islamic, I guess it's the
yeah,
Islamic extremist
yeah.
preacher authority.
Yeah, in Persian, in our language, we say mullah and akhan. And Taliban Persian is all of guards is mullah, and its treatment with prisoner and its treatment with who's on the jail like an animal. I said that before to you, but the treatment of the guards and the who are have a this job to treat prisoner, they gave the for personal food, the food is poison, have a poison. That kind of poison to a prisoner eat that, they will go to shock for 12 hours, 8 hours, and they don't know where I am and what I do and what should I do. And I was for 3 days, I was didn't eat anything. They didn't give me anything for eat. Unfortunately, I was didn't give any food for 3 days. I was lost 10 kg on jail, unfortunately, because of this poisoner. They gave me a poison. They have a poison on food. They inject prisoner. They injected a prisoner for that kind of things that they tell interview for the for his camera to say I'm wrong and Taliban is true. Because of that, they inject people. They have this kind of injection, unfortunately. The condition of person were beyond inhuman. I was kept in dark, overcrowded cell with no light, no clean water, and unfortunately, no medical care. The food was spoiled and barely edible. It made me physically down. Hygiene did not exist, and we had a no access to toilet, showers, or even soap, unfortunately. And for 40 days, I didn't see a soap for washing my hands, and they didn't allow me to do that. They know torture, how to torture a man or a woman. They burned my body. They cut my piece of hand. I show you. This is my piece of hand that they cut at me, and they burned at my sexual types of my body, and also beaten severely and psychologically treatment every hour felt like an eternity. It was not a person. It was a place of pain, fear, and total dehumanization. And every time, just you want to die there because of that danger of torture. Just you open, just you open that to you will. If I will die now, I will be free from you are helpless in there, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness, that sounds absolutely harrowing. Once again, thank you. I know that couldn't have been easy to share with us. So, Rahimi, like in that situation that you're describing, when you're saying like you wish for death rather than that, it takes a lot to hold on to your beliefs when you're dealing with those kind of circumstances and you're not being treated like a human, worse than an animal, especially when your beliefs become the reason that you're suffering, which was clearly the case with you. So, how did you hold on to your beliefs in those situations? And did they keep you like alone, like in isolation, or were you with other prisoners? And if you were, did you form any kind of sense of connection, or were you psychologically isolated?
I was interrogated many times. They aggressively questioned me about my activism and tried to face me to convince that I was receiving money or support from foreigner country, especially a foreign country, especially Western government. Of course, that was not true. They want me to tell in front of their camera to I was support from Western country and I was like a game. I was like a game to come in Afghanistan. I come to Afghanistan for make a Western country culture to Afghanistan. When I refuse to confess of or surrender my values, they escalated, they abused, they sexually assaulted me, unfortunately. Filmed the abuse, and it's very hard for me and use it as a form of blackmailing and psychological torture. Despite this and brutal pressure, I tried to hold on to my beliefs and integrity. I reminded myself of why I started this fight. And one of the hard things for me that the three mullahs come for me. Every time you see the media and social media that Islamic people and Islamic ideology, they say don't touch a man and woman uh, who is unknown to you. But hardest thing is to me that they are coming to me and they want sexually abuse me because of blackmailing to me because I didn't say that they want in front of camera. This is very hard to me and my situation under today. I was every night, every time that I wake up from my bed, they that condition remember to me you are not now you are not a full human, you are not a man, just you broke it now from now. But when I remember that, why I started my fight for justice, for dignity, and memory of my father who was murdered by these extremism and extremely ideology of by Taliban for his own activism, for his own secularism ideology, and for his own things that they founded charity for girls and women, and they helped a lot of these kind of people. But they improved me. It means I means they gave me more power to stay powerful. But that kind of memory that flashback me and that kind of memory that flashback I go to flashback is very hurtful to me to saying and to walking in the street. Also when I walk to street, also I see in Pakistan society, in Pakistan we have a lot of extremely or extremist ideology and people. Every time I walked in a street and I see a man who have a bread like this. I just trying to walk away from there. I think there is a mullah, there is a talib, they camped for killing me. Just this. But until now, I'm stand I stand against these ideologies.
Wow, because obviously, Rahimi, sometimes survival, like the way that you were in survival mode in prison, reshapes people. And I think for you, it definitely sharpened your convictions in what you believe in and why you're doing what you've done. And I just want to say, obviously, from the bottom of my heart as well, the loss of your father at the hands of the Taliban is another unimaginable loss on top of everything else that you've described to us. But I hope somewhere in what you continue to do and the fight that you continue to fight, you are taking his fight with you because obviously his death will not be in vain because of the work that you do. And I hope that brings you some kind of solace or peace, if anything at all. And also the resilience that you've shown by enduring everything they put you through, which you're right, was essentially to break you and make you feel like you're not a man and you're not a human being. Not everybody gets through that resilience, and not everybody makes it through that, sorry, Rahimi. So something in you clearly held firm and reminded you why you're doing what you're doing in the first place. So I know it means nothing, but I genuinely take my metaphorical hat off to you massively because, as I'm saying, many people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. So, Rahimi, just going back to that prison situation when they were interrogating you and the conditions you were living in, were you kept alone or were you with other prisoners?
No, unfortunately, I was in alone and dark room. They have a room like a small room like a five, five, four, yeah, 4 or 5 feet that you cannot go to sleep and you cannot stand up. Really, you cannot stand up and you cannot be go to sleep. I was alone, and 25 days I was alone. After 25 days, then their torture is calmed down. I was my room is go to with another two or roommate. I have my change. They changed my room, and I was with two another roommate. I was for 25 days alone in room. After 25 days, I think 20, maybe 25 or 24 days because I didn't have a time and I didn't know it's night or it's a day. But in my counting and my idea of counting, maybe it was 25 or 24 days after that. They changed my room to another two-man roommate with me, and when they tortured, they have a separate room for torturing and for that kind of danger treating. Sorry.
Wow, okay, so you weren't sure whether it was night or day because you were kept in the dark, but what you think was about 25 days you were probably kept in isolation, and then they would take you elsewhere for the torture methods and the kind of interrogation and forced confessions they were trying to get out of you. That's absolutely harrowing, Rahimi. Okay, so if we can maybe talk more about the bigger picture in terms of what's happening in Afghanistan currently, I would like to get your opinion since you obviously have witnessed the Taliban's brutality firsthand. So, what would you say are, I don't know if this is a horrible question, but my first question, I guess, would be, are there similar prisons that hold women prisoners as well? Because as we know, the Taliban have completely eradicated things like the Ministry of Women. They have removed all female judges from their posts, and the Ministry of Women has now become the Ministry of Vice and Virtue. And we hear reports here in the West coming out saying things like women are forbidden from laughing out loud, women are forbidden from making their feet making noise as they walk down the street. And it started off slowly, obviously. It started from women being denied secondary education, then it became women being denied primary education, then it went to women being allowed out of the house just for very completely important matters like getting groceries. And then it went to women not being allowed anywhere without a male guardian. So, what would you say in terms of, are there women's prisons that hold women that are found in contradiction of what the Taliban consider a virtuous society? Oh, Rahimi, sorry, you're muted.
I think you say what's treating of Taliban with women and children. I think you say that. I didn't get truly the question. Sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so I'm just asking, A, are there prisons that hold women prisoners as well, similar to what you had experienced in your understanding? And secondly, are the reports that we are seeing in the West about the treatment of women, for example, being blocked from even walking on the streets too loudly or laughing too loudly, are they true according to what you've experienced?
I think the shocking things is we, unfortunately, the treatment of Taliban to the prisoner or not prisoner. In Afghanistan, all of people that lives in Afghanistan, unfortunately, it's in a free person, like that kind of person that they don't have ability to do what they want. They cannot do they cannot handle as him daily situation that they want to go somewhere, they want to talk with someone, and they cannot able to join for guests, join camp, going for a like a holiday. Unfortunately, Afghanistan is a open person for our people, but world is did not attend to the Afghanistan people, unfortunately, and also world is did not attend to. We have a list of that in Afghanistan now. We have 26,000 of prisoner who was a human rights defender, who was a journalist, who was a judge in last government. And this 2,600 of people, all we have 1,100 of women and 2,400 of men. And the treatment of Taliban with women in jail also this kind of danger, the rape onto a woman, they cut wounds and they cut meal of the woman and they gave a sexually video of the woman. Also, they have this kind of treatment with women and media, and as law says, we protect women from another man's and media they says. And in media they says our law is best law in the world because they have a Islamic law. Unfortunately, Islamic law says to rape on women in jail. I think maybe say this, but why Taliban have this kind of treatment? I have an answer of why. They have a fundamentally hypnotism of it is a religion, as not a religion, as a masab. I don't know in English what say to masab,
It's
but
like a school of thought.
yeah, yeah. It's fundamental hypnotism of Salafiyat, and Salafiyat says do not agree, do not agree with freedom, do not agree with justice, do not, a woman is not allowed to go school, man cannot have ability to make her breathe, and man cannot able to make her hear, and this like a hypnotism of mentality. But the treatment of that, unfortunately, the treatment of Taliban with women and children is so bad. And every day we have a list of, we for us came a list of women and children that Taliban and some kind of our province, we have a that kind of province that TV is not there because Afghanistan was 40 years in war. And unfortunately, less come for us to in Afghanistan. Kandahar was gone like a Helmand, woman killed by Taliban, woman hated by Taliban, and man killed by Taliban, man goes to jail by Taliban. But world is still blind. I don't know why. The world why blind for this bad situation and tough situation because of Afghanistan. Because America and world is truly they have a friendly situation with Taliban. This kind of situation, this kind of relationship that every big man of Taliban, like a minister, like a judge, like a commander, they can have the ability to go to Germany. Go to Germany. Germany is that kind of country that is a secularism of country that they know all of law of and dangerity of the Islamic radicalism law that Taliban have. But unfortunately, Germany issue a visa for minister of the Taliban. It's very shocking to me. Why world is blind? Why they cannot do anything for Afghanistan? I think in Afghanistan doesn't live human, and Afghanistan is not human. It's hard, very hurtful to me to say this, but unfortunately, it's a hard truth. In Afghanistan, we have a lot of injustice. We have a lot of crime that the Taliban do with our people, that government. The America says USA. Sorry, USA says Taliban is a government, but Taliban that do in Afghanistan is already a crime, human crime, woman crime, man crime. This all crime they do. They killed that man, they killed woman, they banned the school, they banned jobs for women. But what they want, I don't know. And what language I say.
No, absolutely. And I think there is a genuine frustration and sense of despair about why the international community is still failing to understand what daily, like, reality of life is like under the Taliban rule, particularly for non-religious individuals or secular individuals or any kind of minority, and especially for, as you said, men, women, everyone, to be honest, and the kind of level of abuses that are being carried out under their governance is despicable. And for countries like Germany to be offering the Taliban visas, or countries here in the West to even think about accepting them as a recognized form of government, as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, is deeply shocking and contrary to everything the West stands for. And I think we're doing an absolute disservice to the people of Afghanistan for even putting that option on the table, let alone turning it into reality. So just again on staying on the similar kind of topic, what would you, a lot of people I know before this regime got power again, they did say, let's just hold our horses for now and give it some time because this Taliban government will be extremely different to the Taliban of the past and the Taliban that we knew before, almost like a Taliban 2.0. And they're more forward thinking and they're more progressive, as much of an oxymoron and deluded way of thinking that is. What would you say, Rahimi, is the difference between the way that this Taliban government is operating from the Taliban of the past that we've seen?
Unfortunately, the Talibans of 1990s and the Talibans of now, yes, it's changed, but it's being an extremism. It's done a lot of things and extremely hardly, unfortunately. Taliban of past, the regime of 1990s was open. They do injustice openly, but now they cannot able to do that openly. They do blindly in front of camera. Camera is banned, but they do like of that world is didn't know. But fortunately, we have that kind of journalists, we have that kind of people that shows that kind of human rights defender, that kind of activists, and that kind of secular people, and that kind of free thinkers people that now and now world and now they know how to show these crime of and these rules of Taliban, these crimes of Taliban that they do. In 1990s, they cut body of people in front of camera, but now they cut our body behind the camera. It means camera is blind, but they cut it. But some kind of people show to world, and after showing, we know that every time that a journalist that shows that kind of crime, they go to jail, they arrested or they killed. We have a lot of lists that some journalists and some human rights defenders, because of showing these kind of crimes, they goes to jail and they targeted by Taliban and they killed by Taliban. And unfortunately, Taliban has changed it, but they change it extremely radicalismly, and they are more injustice. They are do more injustice. They gives more. They gives us more. They give from us more freedom. They didn't give us some kind of freedomly. They do very hardly. They have a very hardly law, Islamic law, unfortunately. But their rule is all of rules is Islam, extremely Islamic law. But the word that say Taliban has changed it, that's wrong, and that's not a point of. That's the dark point of view of Talib that they see changes. But the reality is not that kind of that world see this view. We see we are under the Taliban, under of the rule of the Taliban. World is not under of the rule. When a tourist come to Afghanistan, they will arrest it. Why? Because they can't have ability to show the world that kind of injustice, but they can't able to go to jail and show a camera to the show the prisoner what situation of the prisoner. That is
Yeah,
it's changing of the Taliban. I don't know why world is say Taliban is changing. Islamic
yeah.
rule is the
No,
Islamic rule is unfortunately Islamic rule is never be changing.
absolutely, exactly. And I think you make a very important point there, and I was actually going to bring it up as well. Basically, I'm sure you're aware of my views, but just separately, I think anytime you've got theocratic Islamic rule of this nature, it will end up in a situation like what we're seeing in Afghanistan. So I know you did mention that they were more Salafi in their leanings, but I would argue that they're less Salafi. They agree with some Salafi things, but they're also very Deobandi. But either way you look at it, the different schools of thoughts are problematic to varying degrees. With the Taliban, however you look at their rule, somebody is impacted for the worse. And to be honest, it regresses society the way that it has taken Afghanistan back years if we compare it to the Afghanistan that we remember even from, let's say, when your parents were young or before that time to the Afghanistan that we're seeing now, where I think you mentioned earlier on in the interview about poverty. So you're describing a perfect situation, which is so fundamentally flawed for society, yet people said, wait, let's see if the Taliban might have changed. Second of all, the Afghans themselves, the people, obviously, it's a very mountainous country. It's a country where a lot of the people reside in rural areas as opposed to the bigger cities. And it's very heavily conservative, it's very heavily patriarchal, especially since the advent of Islam there. But with that comes a lot of people who need to hold on to a religion and a fundamental religion like Islam. So we see a lot of Afghans themselves who actually do stand up for, defend, and actively would vote for Taliban rule, regardless of how bad it is for society and how inhibiting it is for their own rights. Is that something that you see is a issue that's just born out of the sheer poverty that we see in Afghanistan, the fact that they need, because Rahimi, we've seen horrific things in the West where fathers are selling their daughters as young as 9 years old just for 2 weeks worth of food for their family. They're selling their daughters to men who are the age of their grandfather, could be their grandfathers, and this happens only when society is absolutely at breaking point. It should never happen, but we're seeing instances like this in Afghanistan, and then we're seeing certain Afghans turn around and also defend the Taliban. How would you describe what's happening in that sense?
Unfortunately, Afghanistan, I mentioned it that Afghanistan have a culture poverty. It means Afghanistan people is not that kind of poorly or poorest, but we have a culture poverty. We have that kind of people that support Taliban. Why? Because the idea or the mentality that they have, and they have that ability to that kind of our province and our cities that's very far away from capital, and they have didn't have ability for to the media, they didn't have ability to the social media, they didn't have ability to the internet or SIM card or that kind of things. And mosque or and masjid, they every day they have a that kind of fatwa and that kind of propaganda that says they can handle his mental and they control his mental, and because of that kind of our people, it means 30 or 35 or maybe 40 percentage of our people support Taliban because of as religion. We have a poverty in religion in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is all 70% of Afghanistan is unfortunately is Sunni, and maybe 25% of Afghanistan is Shia. But and 70% we have a 40 or 35% of people is Wahhabi. And I don't know Wahhabi or not, but unfortunately, Wahhabi people is what they say. They say go blast, go suicide, kill the people. I don't know what's that word say in English. It's atangwadi in Urdu. I say in Urdu, but unfortunately I don't know in English. Suicide, go bomb blast suicide. And Wahhabiyat, they say these things, and they done like of things in Afghanistan. They says we don't need for school, we need for madrasa,
Yeah.
that kind of things, that kind of area, that the preparation for religion lessons, and they want to know about religion. When a 6-year-old children, when a 5-year-old children or kids, every day a big man or a big woman say to his, go kill a man. If you kill a man, you will be ghazi. Go kill a woman. If you kill a woman, you will be ghazi and you will be go to Jannah. It's very hardly, no? It's Wahhabiyat ideology, unfortunately. But in Afghanistan, we have, unfortunately, in Afghanistan now, we want a secularism government to solve this hardly situation. The situation is very tough, and I don't think this kind of situation may be solved in 10 years or 5 years. But it's been maybe it's one that many years, but it will be. We have a hope it will be one day. But nowadays in Afghanistan, unfortunately, situation is very tough. People is very tough. People is very extremely and extreme radicalism. For me, they issue it for me 3 time fatwa. Nowadays, told you and last time that issue it for me. One fatwa was from our province from Panjshir. One fatwa was from our capital city as Kabul, from head of Taliban. They issue these kind of fatwa for people, that kind of people that fight against Taliban. And one fatwa was from my homeland city, it's Badakhshan. They issue it for me, and they said, "You, if anyone killed that man, we will give a also we will give a gift for that." Because I stand against them, I stand against them, and because of that injustice they do, that kind of injustice, because of that kind of injustice. And I already in Pakistan, I have a record of that. I do it 2 time FIR. I already cut it 2 time FIR. Last week, I have been attacked by two gunpoint of people. They attacked to me, unfortunately, and they gave all of my things, and they tortured me, and they hated me and my back. Unfortunately, I goes to hospital, and I have been hospital for 3 days under treatment. And before in 15 March 2024 also, because of these extremism group and extremism law in Pakistan, I've been attacked and targeted from these kind of groups. But this is ideology. We will solve the ideology by the new lessons, new kind of schools, new kind of teaching, new kind of treatment or new kind of universities. But in madrasa, we cannot handle this kind of ideology. We cannot solve this kind of ideology, unfortunately.
No, I completely agree with you. I think in a country where you've got, whether it's elements of Salafi, I think Islam in general, but where you've got Wahhabism, pockets of that, Salafism, Deobandi Islam all coming together and making this mishmash to even put like Shia minorities at risk, for example. And you've got young men who you want to join madrasas and, as you said, at some level blow themselves up and get straight to heaven. And then you've got women who you've completely erased from society or done your best to erase from society and block from education. If you think about how generations break the poverty cycle, one important way that they do that is if a mother is educated, she can pass that education on to her children, and there's a semblance of hope of that family breaking the poverty cycle. But what they've done in Afghanistan is just regress it, I think, for more than 2 or 3 generations by what we're currently seeing happen. So I think that's extremely distressing to know that the country has taken such a turn for the worse, a dark turn. But I guess that's the point of why I wanted to speak to you today, and generally the activism that I do is because where theocracy or Islam like that is in power, it does lead to a very dark, regressive society for all of those at the receiving end of it. And you did mention there as well, Rahimi, that obviously currently you are in hiding from the Taliban, you're in Pakistan. And I'd imagine, knowing a bit about Pakistan myself, is that you're clearly not entirely safe there because there are pockets of the Taliban that have links to, and there's certain elements within Pakistan themselves that operate within there. So they would potentially even try and target you there. As you mentioned, you were actually attacked just recently, and the FIR that you mentioned is actually, for all the viewers listening, that's a first instance report. So that was a report that Rahimi obviously did to the police regarding his attackers, which makes me obviously wonder how safe you truly are in Pakistan. And I did want to give a shout out to Faithless Hijabi because I believe they were the organization that actually did step in to help you secure a visa when other organizations like Amnesty or the other major human rights organizations we know of might essentially have failed you in that regard. So shout out to Faithless Hijabi. The work that you do is immensely important, and thank you for actually being there to swoop in and save the heroes of society that don't wear capes, such as Rahimi himself. Rahimi, just as we draw to a close here, I did want to ask you clearly when you speak, you envision this hope for Afghanistan and a complete 180 on its current systems, ideology, educational system, like theological suffocation of society. And you talk about secularism, you talk about education. Your father was big on women's rights and things like this and actually gave his life for that cause. So, how many people would you say are there that think like you in Afghanistan? I know you mentioned it is culturally poor. I would say it was pretty abysmal where it ranks on every kind of human index that we could think of. But how many secular or free thinkers or people that don't wish for any extreme form of an Islamic radical theology exist within the country, in your opinion?
In my opinion, in Afghanistan, we have a small kind of people, a small kind of community that their beliefs and secularism and their maybe free thinkers, maybe some people. Well, we have some people of atheists and that kind of people who believes freedoms. We maybe 1%, maybe 2%. This kind of people we have in Afghanistan, but unfortunately, they lives under command of the Taliban. unfortunately they live in the under command of the Taliban. But and Afghan that people of Afghani people that lives in Western country or that live in USA or Canada, maybe we have a thousand or thousands, 2,000 or 3,000 of people. We don't have that kind of people who believes more that and they are free thinkers, unfortunately. But in my community and in my organization, I have an organization that's the name of Secular Society of Afghanistan. We are 95 people, but they are lives in Turkey, Sweden, Denmark, this kind of area. But unfortunately, in Afghanistan, we have one or two members, but they cannot say in media, they cannot say in social media our beliefs and our situation because in Afghanistan already situation is very hard and very tough to say this kind of beliefs. But in another country we can handle. Now in Pakistan, I see in Pakistan, the situation is for me is very tough. And Afghanistan, just I have escaped from targeting. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, I escaped from targeting, I escaped from deporting, I escaped from killing by tourist group. I escaped from sending an application by the Taliban. They already sent an application for me because of deporting me and gave me to the Taliban. But until now it's not. Until now, the situation for me is bad, also bad, not solve it for me. But also we have in Pakistan that kind of Afghan people, maybe three or four people is very a small kind of people that three or four people who believe freedom, who believe for freedom and who believe for secularism and who are a free thinker. Maybe three or four people, unfortunately. But we working on this we have a big community of secular people and we have a big community of free thinkers that we should bring Afghanistan to an happy country.
Yeah, like I said, there's hope in your voice when you do talk about the future. And I'd imagine, based on what you're saying, a lot of the kind of brain drain since the Taliban took power again, like we saw those planes leaving Afghanistan with people jumping on for dear life to just get out of there, which is very telling in of itself. But the brain drain, so I'm guessing a lot more of the kind of expats living in the West or Afghan expats living around the world who are the kind of more educated masses, if they were to ever be able to return, then we'd have again some semblance of a hope of a more secular Afghanistan. I guess a similar hope to what various Iranians would. So thank you for that as well, Rahimi. I do hope your numbers continue to grow, and I hope that your message is the message that resonates with people more than what they are currently susceptible to, especially if we often see religion and poverty go hand in hand. And I think Afghanistan is a prime example where that allows this toxic cycle to continue, is one of the reasons anyway. But as you just mentioned, Pakistan as well, when you said you saw, when you see people with long beards and they resemble Talibs, if you will, or like extreme mullahs or like Islamic leaning people, and you have some trauma triggering reaction to it, and you wonder if they're coming for you and if they're there to find you specifically. Obviously, living in Pakistan could not have been easy at all. And given its proximity to Afghanistan, and given groups like the TTP, who are connected at some level with the Taliban in Afghanistan, how have you, like, being forced to live like this in constant danger, how has that affected your mental and emotional well-being?
Unfortunately, when I start from coming from Pakistan until now, when I came to Pakistan, my situation is not good. My health situation, my medical situation. I was 3 months under the treatment because that kind of torture that Taliban does to me, I cannot be a stand up. And I was for 3 months under treatment of doctors, and I was in hospital. After 3 months, I came to home, and was my situation is better. But my mental situation and my psychologically, my mentally situation and my psychologically situation is not good. It's very tough. Every day living in Pakistan for me is darkness. For me is I have a trauma of deportation. I have a trauma of arresting again. I have a trauma of targeting again. But no organization has helped me. Internationalists didn't help me. Frontline defenders didn't help me. Also, many of organizations is that didn't help me until now. But they are just blind because of me. And unfortunately, my psychological situation is very tough. I have a medicine because of my psychological situation. I eat it 2 times a day, and I have a very big depression and depressed because of the jail. My connection is with, I don't have any connection with some friends or some our worker or some our colleges who lives in Pakistan because of danger things and treat. I didn't have a connection with them. I just connect with my wife who lives with me. I just connect with my some of my friends who lives in America or who lives in UK or this kind of countries. Because of this, my psychological situation is not good. I need for treatment, but because of my financially situation, I cannot handle my treatment. Also, I have an intestine issue because of torture of the Taliban. They under the torture, they hold my intestine. Unfortunately, until now, I couldn't able to solve my problem, my health as intestine problem, because of financially issues. I mentioned you, no one has helped me, no one in organization that not helped me, just Fatless Jobi is helped me, Mr. Nick has helped me because of this danger things. I appreciate Mr. Nick that they saved my life, and also I need help and I need mentally help because I need medicine and I need some medication and some doctors to check me every month. But because of financially and because of security reason, I cannot handle this, unfortunately.
Goodness, 'cause I asked that because I couldn't imagine that in Pakistan you would even be offered any kind of support services. You don't have things really that are well documented or well known resources to tap into there in terms of psychological counseling or therapy or free medication, for example, especially given your current immigration status and the fact that Pakistan are actually kicking out countless Afghans from the country, which is not going to help. But hopefully, sharing your story today, again, Nick from Faithless Hijabi, you've done a stellar job so far. But Rahimi, you are the exact kind of person, as I said, that these human rights organizations are there to help and safeguard. And in your case, with completely not seeing that come to fruition at all, you've got severe trauma that needs addressing from everything that you faced in prison. I'm sure that it's obviously had a knock-on effect on your wife as well, and any immediate family that you've got. So I asked that knowing that I was pretty sure that full well, to be honest, I was sure that you were not getting the treatment that you need and require for the things that you've gone through. And we can only hope that you are provided that kind of help and support as soon as possible, regardless of you being in Pakistan at the moment. And hopefully, if anybody knows of any organizations that can be of assistance and will take up a case like Rahimi's, then please do let him know. I will obviously give you a chance to be able to find him and connect with his work as soon as this is done, and also in the description below. The last two questions that I do have for you, Rahimi, and then obviously I don't want to take too much of your time given the time difference, is that given the state of society and daily living under the Taliban, how much do you think the women of Afghanistan are pushing back against the new policies that limit their freedoms, or have they just now completely given up? Because a few months ago, when I was tracing their fight back, there were times when even when education was forbidden, they were meeting up like in underground little meetings, and they was trying to attend as many classes as they could, or relying on graduates who had already graduated. Because remember, these are women who, some of them were on the verge of finishing their PhDs, and then in a second, overnight, the Taliban just put an end to any future careers that they had, or their lives as they know it. So I did see kind of some meetings happening underground, very brave women who were still doing that, even though the Taliban could have found them. What's the situation now? Have they given up and accepted their fate, or are there still pockets of pushback?
I mentioned to you before that woman situation and girl situation, but we should never lose our hope and we should never be hopeless and we should have a hope and we should fight against. I would like I would like that to invite all of women, men, and everybody of Afghanistan people to join to Secular Society of Afghanistan and also fight against Taliban's. Not that kind of fight physically, fight mentally, fight that kind of fight for freedom, protesting against Taliban's, protesting one of that kind of fight that we Afghanistan people will win soon, and stand against Taliban, stand against extremely and radicalism ideology, and for women's situation is already very tough, and also invite that kind of women that who are believe for freedom and who are believe for justice. They should stand against all kind of radicalism and extremism uh, and ideology of bad ideology of the Taliban, and we have a that's standing against, and we never should lose our hope.
But Rahimi, are the women still fighting back, or have they almost given up, essentially?
Unfortunately, they are fighting, but some kind of our woman is given back, and some of women is fighting against.
Okay, yeah, clearly it's a dire situation, and fighting back is
Yeah,
essentially almost certain imprisonment or death, and a lot of sexual violence embedded within that. So it I completely understand if the women have just resigned to their fate at the moment, because society needs to stand up together, and something seriously like the winds of change need to come to Afghanistan. Which brings me to my penultimate question. How long, in your opinion, do you think the Taliban regime will last?
unfortunately, I don't have your voice.
Oh, how long do you think this Taliban regime will last?
Maybe the Taliban regime, maybe the Taliban regime is for 2 years or 3 years. But if we fighting against Taliban, if we stand against Taliban, if we voice of voiceless, we have a very big, we have a big that kind of community that they are voiceless in Afghanistan. They can't make our voice. But if we are make a voice of voiceless and we stand against these kind of regime and these kind of fundamentally regime, we will win in 3 year, we will win in 2 year, we should win in 4 year, but we need support of Western country, we need support of USA. Without support of this country, maybe the Taliban lasting is 10 years, 20 years, or maybe 40 years, or maybe 45 years, when USA is every week helping Taliban's $14 million because of Taliban do injustice for women, do they ban it school for women, but USA helped Taliban $40 million every week. They help it Taliban. If USA will help Taliban, if Western country help Taliban, it will lasting in 30 year, 40 year. If they will not help Taliban, we will win in 3 or 2 years or 1 year, maybe 6 months. and we have a hope.
And another hope would be to, I don't know if this is a hope that you share, but for me personally, the Afghanistan that I've seen of pre-Islamic days and the kind of more antiq antiquated Afghanistan from the past, historically speaking, it was a region where Buddhism flourished, where pockets of Zoroastrianism flourished, where even bits of Hinduism flourished, depending on what region you look at. And a prime example of how intensely Buddhist and the pride within that faith and culture was for Afghanistan was the Bamiyan Buddhas. And I come from long ago now, but like an Afghan, excuse me, heritage myself. And if you trace back your familial roots, it does show you a time before Islam where there were a lot more pluralistic societies, where women were not covered up the way they are. Afghanistan's national dress is colorful, the jewelry is colorful, the tattoos, even in the rural areas, even in the villages, for example, Afghanistan predominantly a mountainous people, and there were separate independent cultures flourishing within them. And then we come and we see that wherever Islam goes, this Arab imperialistic colonizing culture is imposed on the masses, and all color is erased, all music, all poetry, all remnants of the past are destroyed. So for me, the hope one day in my lifetime, which I doubt it will be, but we can only hope that people like yourself will come forward from Afghanistan, fight from the depths of your soul for your country, and maybe one day there could be a revival of the Afghanistan before Islam. I think that would also be a beautiful little nugget of history and the actual historical trajectory of Afghanistan that could be brought back to life. I guess the last thing I would say to you, Rahimi, is if you had the world's attention just for 1 minute, what would you want to say about anything to do with your situation, Afghanistan's fight for dignity, for human rights, or any kind of message you have for the world?
Yeah. I have one message for the world. Don't forget our poor people. Don't forget secular people. Don't forget free thinkers who live in Afghanistan. My message is for European Union and Western country. We have not too much of secular people that live in under government of Taliban. Don't forget that kind of people. And one message for that our people fight against Taliban, stand against Taliban, stand against extremism, and show your power to the world. We are not that kind of people that we should follow the rule of Arabic people. We are Persian, and we are not follow the rule of Arab people. We have rule, and we have our nation, and we have our ability to make a rule for us, not Arabic rules, not Islamic rules, not that kind of rule that pushed you had.
Very well said. And Rahimi, where can people follow you, find your work, reach out to you?
They can reach me with my WhatsApp business and my X account.
So your WhatsApp business for the Afghan Secular Society, I will pop in the description below this. So please go ahead and add Rahimi if you've got anything to contribute towards the Secular Society of Afghanistan. Otherwise, what's your handle on X again, Rahimi? Could you just remind the viewers?
My X is Ahmad Wais Rahimi, and also my WhatsApp business is you
I'll put
can
that number in, don't worry.
add on
Yeah.
this
Okay.
you are in description.
Sure. So Rahimi's X handle is essentially his full name, and you can go ahead there and drop him a message on X if you want to get in touch with him, and alternatively on WhatsApp. This has been a very insightful interview, and thank you very much for sharing something that is extremely personal to you and your situation. Thank you not just for what you survived, Rahimi, but for choosing to speak about it, because that's so hard in itself to come out and tell your story, especially given the situation you're in currently. And I did ask you before we did this that, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you going to be safe? So I do worry about your safety constantly. So please keep safe. But I think it's very important that we had this conversation because I wanted to remind people of the situation in Afghanistan and the fight that people like you are continually fighting against radical theologies and theological states like the Emirate of Afghanistan, because with the news cycle, we've got so many different things, especially with the whole situation in the Middle East, the conflict there, that it's very easy for one's mind to forget about what's happening in Afghanistan and to forget about the perils of men like yourself in Afghanistan, women and children, and the minorities there. So stories like yours definitely remind us that freedom isn't just a concept, it's lived, it's lost, and fought for one belief at a time. Some stories honestly don't even need to be explained, they just need to be heard. And I truly believe yours is one of them. And today we heard yours. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of those who have listened. And I hope you learned something from Rahimi's story and the current situation unfolding in Afghanistan, in case you had any doubts. And please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, go ahead and give Rahimi a follow in his fight for his country. Thank you very much, Rahimi. Take care and speak soon.
Thank you for you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone!